I'm Inch, and I've been a singer-songwriter and actress for the past 14 years. This career hasn't been easy. I've had to overcome countless rejections, but I believe I've inherited a certain tenacity from my grandmother. You see, she was sold away as a child. In spite of that, she grew up being a loving mom of 8 children. While I know plenty about Grandma, I know very little about my biological great-grandmother. Why did she sell my grandma? And was it worth the sacrifice? I'm at my mom's house. We make it a point to meet for meals monthly. This time, we're gathering with 2 of my aunts to make my grandmother's ngoh hiang recipe, which is a type of pork roll, a family favorite. This is my grandmother, who I call Mimi Mama. She had 8 children, 7 girls and a boy. My mom is the 3rd out of 7 sisters, all of whom have been told various versions of Grandma's birth story.
Amma got this recipe from her mother.
Actually, my mother, she got 2 mothers. One's a biological mother and one adopted.
Her adopted mom cannot cook well. So whatever Amma learned how to cook, she learned it from all her friends, from neighbors.
We are not close with her biological mother because we totally really don't know her much well. Her name is called Lim Hei.
Lim Hei.
Lim Hei.
Hei mi kia hei lah. I think so lah. Yeah.
I saw her a few times, then mother had one of her photographs. I think her adopted mother took the photograph and tells her, this is your mother.
Amma was sold by Lim Hei in Singapore when she was 3 years old.
3?
Yeah. So it's like that Lim Hei brought your Mimi Mama from China to Singapore and then sold her for her boat ride.
Passage right from China to Singapore.
Yes. So that means her adopted mom will pay her biological mother the money, then she'll use it to pay
the boat ride.
Your great-grandmaternal parents, right, are actually her adopted parents.
But she's like 3 when that happened, so actually got like memories already of her previous mom, right?
Yes. She'll cry, you know, every day. And last time they lived in this very small room with a lot of partition shared by many other people also. So the rest all complain. So I think eventually she had no choice but to bring your Mimi Mama to her biological mom to slowly wean off her biological mother.
Oh wow.
The one mother tell you, is it?
Yeah.
Did she ever try to have a relationship with her real mother?
It's only the adopted mother and the biological mother keep contact, but not mommy lah, my mother.
Her adopted parents and her biological mom came from Tante.
Back in the 1900s, Tante in Hokkien, or Chen Tai in Mandarin, was a town in the Zhaoan County in the Fujian province. This is where both my biological and adoptive great-grandparents come from.
When they come to Singapore, they all tend to congregate and stay at the same area.
Amma's real mother was just nearby.
My adopted grandmother always go to Sirat Road and visit her friend.
Yeah.
And then will pass by the biological mother house.
And she told me
Lim Hei
was a construction worker.
Samsui?
We don't call them samsui because we are Hokkien, so we
Yeah.
don't. But she works similar kind of work. She would dig soil and carry.
Did they know each other before they sold her to our grandparents?
No, I think she also thinks that this couple, no children, and then maybe they are better than selling her to another family.
Her adopted mother was a washerwoman. And then the adopted father
is doing as a coolie, working in the harbour board that's now called Keppel.
Her adopted parents actually doted on her.
Clearly, Lim Hei was a survivalist lah, like really mega survivalist. I mean, the lengths of which I will sell my daughter to get a ticket out of a new life.
We shouldn't judge her biological mom because we don't know the reasons that drove her from China to Singapore. We only know life must be so hard to make such difficult decision, right?
My grandmother was born in 1933, which would mean that she was sold in 1936. I'm headed to Chimes with Ho Chi Tim, a sociologist, to find out more on the social practice of selling babies during this time. He's asked to meet me at Chimes.
This door is known as the Gate of Hope. It's the gate to an orphanage started by the nuns of the Convent of the Holy Infant Jesus from 1854-1855. This is the location where unwanted babies will be left, and usually they will be daughters, females.
It's so heartbreaking that the abandoned babies were mostly female. Was there a reason for that?
One of it would be social stigma. Asian communities usually favor boys. If the extra child is a female, it's an extra mouth to feed. So poverty would be one. Also, if the female babies are born in the year of the tiger, might bring bad luck to the family.
My grandmother was sold as a child. Was this a very common practice at that time?
Yes, because of those reasons that I outlined earlier. That's usually the supply side, but there's also a demand for such female babies. Some families would like to buy a child bride because economically speaking, it will be much cheaper to buy the child bride rather than to give a dowry to an adult prospective wife-to-be.
How would a sale like that even take place?
As there was no formal institutions regulating this, usually word of mouth. It's their neighbor. Or it could be a nurse in a hospital, or
just word of mouth.
Just word of mouth. Sometimes it's more informal. It's just an exchange of ang pao and some gifts, maybe wine.
Is it just purely a verbal agreement that we're going to hand a child over?
Very easy transactions, but actually within the Chinese community, there are such things as contracts or indentures.
Okay.
So I have a sample over here. It was donated by Madam Tay Alian. It details her name, her age when she was exchanged, 12 years old in 1939,
Wow.
and the value.
So it's $88. Wow.
Because she was bought at 12 years old, so she will probably be doing domestic chores and duties all the way up to when she's ready to be married.
Is that like a lot of money at that time?
Yes, it'll be quite a bit of money, but it can go as low as $5 if they're really desperate for money.
What? $5?
I've discovered how my biological great-grandmother, Lim Hei, sold her daughter in Singapore as a means to escape Fujian China, and that my grandmother could have been sold anywhere from $5 to $88.
Could you tell me some of the common fates for a lot of these women?
There are other girls that are less fortunate. There's a case that is reported in the Straits Times in the early 50s. The girl that was exchanged hands at least about 5 times for a total cost of $1,500. And she ended up in a brothel in Singapore, from Federation of Malaya all the way down to Singapore.
Wow, all of this is really heartbreaking and quite sobering to hear. I think my grandmother must have been really lucky to have gotten to a really good household. Yeah. In many ways, my grandma was in the situation of anyone being sold was probably the best scenario possible. They doted on her, gave her everything, and we don't know if Lim Hei did it out of love or care or pure pragmatism. I have a feeling the answer is probably all of the above and somewhere in between.
Research shows a boat ride from China in those days would have cost about $25. It's unlikely Grandma could have been sold for a measly $5. The thing is, my adopted great-grandparents worked as a coal coolie and a washerwoman. How did they afford this sale? I'm headed to the Chin Kang Gallery, a museum dedicated to coolies, to meet historian Donna Brunero.
Most of these coolies would not necessarily be literate, so they won't be writing their histories, they won't be writing letters, they aren't taking photographs. But what we do have is a lot of the tools that they used for work. So we do have a sense of the lives that they had through these everyday tools. So it is physical labor, and it's all at the waterfront, essentially.
My adopted great-grandfather was a coal coolie at one point. It sounds like it would have been a really difficult job.
Singapore was one of the most important coaling stations as well. Shipyard companies basically hiring maybe 2,000 men to work as coal coolies. It would be hard work and it would be long hours. It could be anywhere from 60 kilos to 100 kilos that you would be carrying.
What? That's more than my weight.
And many of the images that you'll see of coal coolies, they don't wear shoes. So again, it's barefoot. And you are walking up often like a plank to load the boat. And you wouldn't do this once. You would need to do this around 160 times to be paid $1. Coal coolies were relatively well paid compared to other coolies that might only be making 50 cents in a day or 60 cents. It was quite dangerous and it was really arduous work. This is why quite often they were paid a little bit more.
Oh wow, that's good to know. My great-grandfather was getting himself a good paying job. Would it have been enough to buy my grandmother?
I think this is where it's hard to know. You would have to save up for a really long time to be able to do that. Perhaps if there was support from other friends or family as well. Perhaps if his wife also worked, that would help in this situation.
My adopted great-grandma, she was actually a washerwoman. So I think both definitely was a dual income household.
You won't have a lot, but I think we've got to bear in mind the lifestyle would be quite different. You would eat quite simply. You don't have a lot of possessions or belongings, so it might be possible to put some money aside, to have some very meager savings.
I feel like they must have really wanted a daughter. Somehow, with whatever salary that they had, which I'm guessing wasn't much, they doted my grandma.
This was one of the dreams of Singapore, right? That you left China quite often because things are really desperate. You come here to try and make a life for yourself. So to be able to see the next generation being able to benefit, I think is many people's dream, actually.
I wonder if Lim Hei achieved her dream. I know that she worked as a samsui woman in Singapore, and this was a tough life on all accounts. But I'm wondering if it was a better life than the one she left. Research shows that the situation in China between the 1900s to the 1950s was dire. The country was rife with famine, natural calamities, unemployment, and civil unrest. I'm meeting Professor Calvin Low, an author who interviewed 6 samsui women for his book.
So, why are we here, Prof?
Well, Inch, this is Upper Chin Street. It used to be called Taufukai or Tofu Street. And this is where the samsui women used to live and look for jobs in the area.
If I was Lim Hei and I'm here just to get work, what do I do?
In those times, it was a non-contractual assignment to assignment, so pretty ad hoc, right? The foreman or the kepala with a bunch of either joysticks or matchsticks in his or her hand and say, from tomorrow onwards, I need 10 laborers for this assignment on this site. Grab a job. And this is where they try to secure a job through getting that joystick or matchstick.
So they would just jostle for joysticks?
I think quite literally, yeah.
Like grapple and wrestle other women for a job?
I think that scenario really reminds us that jobs were never easy for them.
No.
So it was a big thing to get that job, you know, just to survive on a day-to-day basis.
What kind of work awaits them?
Usually carrying soil, transporting cement, excavating stones. The nature of the work that required them to be quick, careful and strong. And by strong, I'm talking about them having to carry, for instance, 45 kilos of cement dust. We we can easily acknowledge construction work is never easy. Where you're speaking, jobs, simple virtue of punctuality and efficiency. The good reputation goes around, and construction companies would deliberately look for them to hire them for assignments.
Yeah. What were they exactly building?
Some of the important landmarks
really?
in Singapore included the Merdeka Bridge, Alexandra Hospital, Changi Airport, Seletar Air Base, AIA Insurance Building. Because of all the different sites and buildings that they've helped erect in Singapore, you know, not only are they labelled as Asia's first feminists, but they're literally attributed as the built-up pioneers of the country.
Was it really difficult to make a living in Singapore?
If you think about the wages per day, it's about 50 to 70 cents per day, which was already better off relative to working in rubber factories or vegetable packing factories. If you were to consider rental that they paid, it's about 80 cents to $1.20 a month. So they could live with a roof over their head, but let's remember the conditions, that it was dark, it was shared, and they were sleeping on basically makeshift beds, wooden plank propped up by 2 stands.
Considering how much she would have made, do you think it would have been possible for her to buy back my grandmother?
If you think about the wages that they earned, it was probably a tall order to say that they were actually able to have much to save.
Would she have had a better life back home in China instead of being here?
I think what I've learned from the samsui women is that they do cherish their independence. I recall one of the women sharing with me that they were faced with circumstances of marital oppression, domestic abuse from the mothers-in-law, that they thought maybe their way out is to venture overseas.
That's fair. You don't have to deal with any other social oppressive construct.
Floundering husbands, you know, who don't play their part.
You get to have, I guess, more autonomy in this
definitely.
new city, because Singapore at that time was sort of like a city of new things.
Singapore was where they could carve out their own space, for better or worse.
I think at that time, coming to Singapore is a gamble, right? It doesn't instantly mean you have a better life here. But once you're here, people committed to it and forged a better life for themselves. It takes a lot of, I guess, determination and constitution to then commit to the choices that you make.
But did this choice come at a cost? Has Grandma ever forgiven Lim Hei? I've discovered that my grandmother was sold by her mother Lim Hei when she was just 3. This happened in the 1930s. I wonder if Grandma ever thinks about her biological mother. My grandmother now suffers from dementia, and it's tough to make out her real memories. But I need to try.
阿媽，你記得你幾歲不？
啊，
你幾歲？
我嚇，是啊，你做問我幾歲啊？話個唔仔啊。
你細漢啊，即係一輩輩，你細漢。
迄陣我幾歲，我是唔知，我知咗我真細漢啊。
你的名呢？
他的名字是我養的媽媽在我換的，我以前買給他的名字什麼名字，我就小的不懂事了。
那個媽媽跟你的先媽一認識嗎？
頭前唔捌啦，人介紹啦，介紹講伊這囡查某囡仔會互人啦。我的養母講好啦，伊講啊，伊可能偌濟鐳啊，伊講伊3歲啦，我3歲啦。用3歲愛30塊啦，留英政府的紙30塊真大個了咧，鐳真大了。
你小時候一輩輩吼，伊心疼無？
伊無賣得嘛，無心疼什麼？
你生母安怎愛賣你？
伊無鐳嘛，做工嘛，特就去做頭嘛，骨頭嘛。啊，伊無將賣人，伊無安怎去做工？伊生了的時陣就賣掉，伊去骨頭。啊，古早人無輸甲查某，查甫伊就飼，安怎艱苦本飼，查某伊就賣。 啊，咱个死个，个点样生查某了。
那你生母啊？那你在到新加坡是比较好的生活吗？
啊，伊卖掉了啊的时阵，你就搁甲别人做阵食饭咯。啊，伊若甲我人，伊甲别人食饭，我人真少甲伊上路了啦。
那个你生母吼，有没有好关系吗？
无上路啦，当今无甲伊上路了啦。伊也无来，咱也莫去找伊了啦。无必要这个。
你有7个女孩子，对
7个查某囝。
对，查某囝。
有想
过爱卖伊无？
无。
无。
啊，我的翁讲哦，生偌济查某分着饲，囝是人就袂使互人。因咱食好对人食好，食歹对人食歹。我翁是安尼款讲，因袂使互人，一个都袂使互人，无互人。7个拢饲着，无你妈都玩得好，你玩得好。
查某囝是真好。你觉得你幸运吗？
算我的命阁袂歹啊，可人分来分去，阁分着好个。啊，代表我这个养母甲养爸这因才少啊！哎呀，真幸啊，真 lucky 啊！
你很 lucky， 我也是觉得我很 lucky 啊。
嘛是 lucky， 我的孙买袂 lucky。
When it rains in Dharamsala, raindrops wear boxing gloves. Despite all the accounts where you hear like, oh, she got sold at 3, and all this can be extremely traumatizing, but it's very clear through the emotional memory of my grandma that the love that my adopted great-grandparents sits with her more profoundly than anything else. Good things can grow if you just give it the right environment. I think Lim Hae did her due diligence, and she also fought for something that was for herself. It's exciting to find out that it's in my blood. Survival is in my blood. It really does take a special breed of person to do the things my great-grandmother did. That stays very much in my language of living.